Today, a special edition of Detroit Muscle as we flash back 45 years to 1969. It was a pinnacle year for factory-made hot rods, and we'll feature Motor City's favorites from each of the big four manufacturers: Ford, Mopar, GM, and yes, AMC too.
'69 was a mind-blowing year and a turbulent decade. Men landed on the moon, the Miracle Mets landed a World Series title, an unpopular war dragged on in Southeast Asia, while the hippies celebrated peace and music at Woodstock. The Beatles were breaking up, while Elvis was making a comeback. The average cost of a new car that year was just over $3,000, and the gasoline to go in it was only 35 cents a gallon.
It's a good thing, too. A lot of big block powered, tire twisting factory cars, well, were drinking up fuel faster than they could get it. And it's no denying, back in '69, the muscle car wars were in full deployment.
Right you are. You know, Tom, I guess you could ask 3 car guys what their favorite year for American muscle was and get 3 different answers. But safe to say, 1969 was about as good as it got. Today, we're spotlighting 4 American muscle cars from 1969 from the Big Four back then. And each car carved out its own unique chapter in factory performance history.
First off is Ford with an all-new breed of Mustang that was designed to outperform and outshine the Camaro, especially in Trans Am racing.
Low, lean, and mean, the Boss 302 was another muscle car built for the racetrack that found its way to the street. It started out as a Trans Am racer, and Ford had to make 1,000 of them before they could go to the track. So starting with the '69 model like this one, there was a new high-performance Mustang, one that combined a hot engine with road race handling, and the Boss 302 was easy to pick out of the Mustang lineup.
The front spoiler was standard, and the '69 had 4 round headlights up front. The Boss 302 was the only one with the flat black on their hood, trunk, the tail, and around the headlights, and a reflective C-stripe down the side. All 4 fenders were flared out just a little to make room for the Magnum 500 wheels. The side scoops on the other Mustangs were gone on the Boss 302. The rear window louvers and plastic spoiler in the back were right in style in '69.
Under the hood, a 302 tunnel port small block with 351 Cleveland heads and forged aluminum pistons, just barely legal for racing. It was breathing through a Holley 4-barrel with dual exhaust. There's 290 horses up front, a top-loaded 4-speed behind it, and a 350, 390, or 430 traction lock in the rear end. The Boss really wasn't meant for the drag strip. It was a road racer, and it had to do more than just accelerate.
It's mean looking.
Just the lines of it, just the way it looks.
It's tough.
The 302 didn't last long, just 2 years, '69 and '70. Then Ford got out of racing. The price of a running 302 is not quite through the roof yet, but you're going to have to spend at least 40 grand on a driver and even more on a show car. At that price, you want to be certain you're driving the real thing, and there's several different ways to tell for sure.
If it's an automatic, it's not a Boss 302. They all were 4 speeds, no exception to the rule. The genuine Boss 302 has screw-in freeze plugs and 8 screws holding down each valve cover. The 5th digit in the VIN number has to be the letter G. That shows that it has the Boss engine. Without that, it's just another Mustang.
The Boss 302 is one of the few that can handle the road as well as the track. Even now, 45 years later, there aren't many modern cars that can run this fast and look this good. And the price back then was just over $3,500.
Which, by the way, Tom, is the number of times I've kicked myself for not buying one, and it hurt.
Coming up, one of Mopar's fiercest street machines from 1969, the stripped-down street-fighting Dodge Hemi Super V. Then later on, we'll take a look at a super rare Chevy as well as a patriotic AMC muscle machine.
Just in case you're just joining us, where have you been? No, seriously, we've been taking a look at the Detroit muscle machines that made 1969 such a hot year. Mr. Joe, by chance, did you do any of that street racing back then?
Can I plead the fifth? Seriously, street racing in any year is not a good idea, but if you had a certain stripped down mid-sized Dodge with a Hemi under the hood, well, it's kind of hard to resist some traffic light challenges. After all, the '69 Hemi Super B wasn't made for Sunday cruising.
This is not just any old muscle car. This one is a warrior. Colin Comer's 1969 Super B was a street racer from day one, stripped down from the factory as a predator with one thing in mind.
The guy that bought it wanted to go street racing in the Bronx, and he was 21 years old, and this was his idea of the ultimate street car.
All this thing did was street fight. Today, this rare Hemi only has 4,000 miles on it, and it got most of those one light at a time. Nobody has any record of how many street fights it won, but even today, you can make some pretty good guesses. Now, the Hemi option was expensive, nearly a quarter of the price of the whole car. So they didn't make too many of these. Only 38 four-speed Hemi hardtops were built in 1969.
No options but the Hemi and the driveline that went in it. The heavy-duty four-speed, a 410 gear in the Dana 60. Nothing to make it look better, everything to make it go faster. The double-scoop Ram Charger hood came standard on the Hemis, and they needed it to let that massive engine breathe. Side scoops right behind the doors were optional.
Super Bs looked like two-door taxi cabs, and that's pretty much what they were. Plain B bodies with just a little chrome around the wheel wells. That Super B stripe across the rear quarters, dog dish hubcaps on standard F7015s. Well, that finished off that plain but simple look.
Chrysler said the whole package was meant strictly for those interested in legal drag racing. Yeah, right. Running the streets was about as legal as this one ever got. Burning the tires and listening to those two Carters move some serious air. Even big-time Mopar guys like Colin have got to admit, Chrysler didn't build the tightest bodies back then, but who cares when those Hemis were up front? It's all about that straight line.
You accept it for what it is, and when you get on the throttle and you run it through 4 gears, you kind of forget about the squeaks and rattles, and when you hit a bump, it does the two-step. It's all secondary to the performance and the image and the way they were.
Now, it's possible this thing could operate in a less hostile environment. Not that you want to do so. This car wasn't meant for comfort. It's basically a plain Jane wrapper for the Hemi. Bench seat, hard springs, basic gauges. Just look at that, 4,000 miles on it.
Colin Super B every now and then gets a nice drive to the park, but it's not really happy unless it's all out. Sometimes a little street fight is just way too much to resist.
Once in a while you get some kid in a Honda that wants to run, and give him a good lead, and then you can go by him and show him what muscle was like 30 years ago.
You could say it was about like that.
By the way, the origin of the name Super Bee has nothing to do with an insect. It actually refers to the designation of the bee body shared by the Charger and the Roadrunner.
Well, thank you, Professor Mopar. Of course, the super part, it speaks for itself.
Next, how a Chevy dealer gained fame and fortune by creating special versions of Detroit muscle cars, including the rare and rowdy '69 Supernova. Then it's AMC's turn, so get in the driver's seat and get ready to scramble.
In the performance-minded 1960s, anybody could walk into a dealership showroom and buy some serious muscle right off the floor. But a few could offer you a lot more for the right price.
Their creations would take the muscle car to a whole new level of excitement and performance. Don Yenko Chevys, then and now, are the most famous of all. He worked his magic on Camaros and Corvettes, and in '69, this beauty.
Don Yenko also worked his magic on the Nova. In 1969, he took 36 of them with factory 396s, making 375 horses, then swapped in 427s, transforming them into Yenko supercars.
First of all, grab a hold of the steering wheel, because with these tires, the back end's going to go a lot of different directions. A little push you back in the seat.
They were super because the L72 that was dropped in was rated at 425 horse, but in reality, made much more. 0 to 60 in the 4-second range, some collectors believe is the fastest Yenko ever built. Don called them lethal because the car only weighed around 3,400 pounds with stock suspension. But all that power made your insurance agent sweat a bit. Owner Cliff Ernst knows.
This car is a beast. It's the lightest that they put the 427 in, and the cars can be very difficult to handle when you really get into it.
Although the 427 was stuffed in the Nova, they kept the factory 396 heads and intake, giving it 11-to-1 compression. They gave it an M21 close ratio 4-speed and a posi track with a 410 gear and a 12-bolt housing. The usual badging up front and rear, and those stripes let you know it was a Yenko.
It's a surprising car because it can be very docile and very easy to drive in traffic, but when you get out and really want to get on the car, it's all ready to go.
The interior is all business, no frills. Just black vinyl seats, a few Stewart Warner gauges, and some headrest decals, and that's it. This baby isn't about looking pretty, it's all about going fast. Competition in the day came from the Boss Mustangs and Dodge Darts, but they never saw this sleeper until it was way too late. Don Yenko cast a large shadow over the performance car market from '67 up until '82 when he retired.
I think he built some fabulous cars for the time. He was really Mr. Performance for that period of time. There were certainly other dealerships that were doing similar things, but the Yenko was the one that people really recognized.
You want to talk rare? Out of the original 36 Supernovas from '69, only 8 are known to exist today, and this is one of them. For a car you could drive off the lot for about $4,400, its estimated worth today is about $300 grand and higher. But for Cliff, it all comes down to one thing.
Just a blast to drive. Yes, it's rare. You got to have some fun with them too.
Here's an interesting little sidebar for you. Long before anyone coined the term muscle car, there was a growing and thriving aftermarket industry for guys who like to buy their own performance parts and turn their street cars into hot rods. Companies with names like Iske, Hurst, and, well, Edelbrock, who still makes this vintage twin carb and intake setup. Now, when Detroit got into the muscle car game and started making factory hot rods, a lot of insiders predicted doom for the aftermarket. Well, according to Vic Edelbrock Jr., the outcome was totally different.
Fran Hernandez that used to work for us and worked for Ford Motor Company, he came by to see us, and it was about that time. And he said, Vic, you're in real trouble. Your business is damn near done because we're going to make all the stuff. We're coming back into the performance business. And I looked at him, I said, Fran, maybe not. What it did is it excited everybody to the fact that, hey, there's performance to be gained out here. I can do this stuff. So as long as Edelbrock had something that would go into that, it was automatic. They actually helped us, not hurt us.
Well, back to 1969, AMC may be gone but not forgotten, thanks in part to a little car that proves big things do come in small packages.
Still ahead, the underdog takes a bite out of the big boys with a lightweight straight line head turner. Ladies and gentlemen, say hello to the 1969 AMC Scrambler.
By 1969, even American Motors, the champion of the economy car, had gotten the muscle car bug. Now, they were late to the staging lanes, but AMC produced some impressive performance cars in a relatively short time.
Now, the AMX and the Javelin first come to mind, but they actually launched a straight line little rocket that became one of the most potent cars of its time. But what else would you expect when you take the company's largest engine and put it in their smallest car?
Even in the nicest neighborhoods, you never know what kind of dangerous beast might be lurking in the garage just waiting to strike. How about 315 horsepower in a car the size of a Honda Civic? AMC took the direct approach to performance back in '69. Their largest engine crammed into a small car. Plain Jane on the inside, painted like a circus wagon on the outside.
In 1 year, AMC offered the SC Rambler with 2 different war paint schemes. Between that and the wicked Ram Air Scoot, you knew this bad boy meant business. The Scrambler's got the same 394 barrel as the Javelin and the AMX. They were real street-legal race cars made to run NHRA F-stock. AMC sold all 1,512 special edition Hurst SC Ramblers. By the time they hit the showroom floors, they were bought up.
Are we ready?
Mike Lewis bought and sold 5 Scramblers before he found the one he wanted to keep.
It's strictly a straight line car. No pony car out of this. This is muscle car. This is not a sports car wannabe.
No air, no power controls, no nothing. Just a light body with nothing on it that didn't have to be there. Plenty of oxygen for the fuel-air mixture, courtesy of that Ram Air setup. Mirrors is manufactured to look identical to the ones that come off the '69 Hurst Olds 442. Heavy-duty shocks and springs all the way around. Power disc brakes up front, E70 by 14 Goodyear poly glass with red stripes. AMX wheels, and the factory painted them blue with a rattle can.
Thrush mufflers gave what AMC called that special tone. And frame connectors were buried in the unibody to keep that 390 from twisting everything out of shape. Inside, it was all economy until you saw that 8 grandson tack had the Hurst 4-speed hooked up to a Borg-Warner T10, 354 gear in the rear end, and AMC's twin grip limited slip differential. This was just about all original. Mike even has the window sticker. Total price, just over $3,000 with shipping.
That was about basic cost of a Roadrunner for that same year. The Scrambler's not worth as much today, but the AMC prices have been creeping up a bit, and the Scrambler in top-notch shape will bring 30 plus. Mike says a lot of guys ask him if that's an old Nova he's in when he takes it to the cruise in.
He doesn't mind explaining, but he really doesn't need to, because the Scrambler speaks pretty well for itself. Well, you know, those cars didn't last very long. They didn't make much money, but they were fast.
Yeah, well, Joe, what kind of car did you have back then?
Well, it was a Ford, not a Mustang, unfortunately. It was a big old Galaxy with a little V8. Now, I know you weren't around in '69, right?
No, they don't call me babyface Bossiers for nothing.
Yeah. Well, thanks to the magic of television, the crew and I were able to come up with what you would have looked like in '69 with the ride you would have been in.
I bet it's awesome either way,
Take a
but
look.
I'm a little cautious.
Take a look.